Does any of this sound familiar? Fear of failure, chronic self-doubt, being afraid of being found out, feeling like a fake, believing all of your accomplishments are due to luck, or never really owning your success? If so, you might be struggling with imposter syndrome. Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel where you are what matters. Today we're going to be talking about imposter syndrome, which is just a big fancy term for the collection of feelings that I just mentioned. And it's a lot more common than you might think. And if you like videos about increasing motivation, boosting your productivity, and reducing your overall stress, get started now by hitting the subscribe button below. So imposter syndrome at its most basic is the belief that at any moment you're going to be found out. That somehow you don't actually have those skills that you said that you did, that you probably spent years working on, and that somehow you got to wherever you are based on luck, and that at any moment, someone is going to figure you out. Imposter syndrome isn't just one feeling, it's this whole collection of feelings. By themselves, these feelings might not be that big of a deal, but when you put them all together, it becomes so paralyzing that you are afraid to actually go after any of the things that you want. This is not what I want for you. You deserve all of the awesomeness that life has to offer. So let's dive into this mess of feelings so that we can sort it out and you can go out there and start killing it. Okay, so let's start by talking about the feelings that are behind imposter syndrome so that you can start to get an awareness of them, which is always the first step when you're working through something like this. One of the first feelings that comes with imposter syndrome is that you must never, ever, ever fail. Obviously, if you're afraid of being found out, you can't ever fail because then you will be found out for not really knowing what you're doing. So the odd thing about imposter syndrome is that there's actually a flip side to the fear of failure, and that's that you don't want too much success because that would draw too much attention to you. So now here you are simultaneously trying not to fail, but also trying to not be so awesome that people start paying attention to you. So how's that supposed to work out for you? The next sensation is that you feel like a fake, even though you spent potentially years and years working to develop the skills that you have. At any moment, somebody could figure out that you don't actually know what you're doing. Logically, you know that this doesn't make any sense, but at the same time, that thought doesn't really make that sensation go away. So I used to be a scenic artist, which is someone that paints scenery for theater, and I still struggle with imposter syndrome. I would have these huge pieces of scenery that I could point at and say, look, I painted that and people like it. But it still would not click. I would still feel like a fake. To the point where anytime a scene designer would come to me with the next set of renderings for painting, I would still seriously doubt the fact that I could actually do what they were showing me. The next is the feeling like you somehow got lucky. Because clearly if you don't have the skills and you're actually a fake, then how else did you get in the position that you're in? Clearly, it must have been luck. One of the big problems with the sensation that you just got lucky is that you feel like you could never recreate these results, which really keeps you stuck because you feel like you're really lucky that you got where you are and there's no way you could possibly go further, so why would you even try? And then the flip side of this is the feeling that whatever you did just wasn't that big of a deal. Anybody could have done it. Anybody could have played that piano concerto or ran that marathon or painted that piece of scenery. You don't really have any kind of amazing skills that somebody else couldn't have just walked in off the street and done instead of you. So you just add these two sentiments together and then you get one awful negative feeling of, I'm lucky that I got where I was, and at any moment somebody could come in, walk in off the street, and replace me. If you've ever met someone that really cannot take a compliment, then they might have been dealing with imposter syndrome. Because if you take in all of these sentiments, if you've got somebody that's thinking all of this in their head at the same time, you can imagine how they wouldn't even believe you if you gave them a compliment because they're not attributing any of their success to themselves. So if you're identifying with one or more of these symptoms, then you might be on the imposter syndrome struggle bus too. But don't be surprised if you are, because studies show that 70% of people will suffer with imposter syndrome at some point in their lives. So let's talk about what you can do to get through it. As I said a moment ago, and as is true with all of these thought, habit, pattern type things, the first step to sorting it all out is awareness. Since imposter syndrome is really a collection of feelings that stem from a set of thoughts that might be a pattern that could have become a habit, you're going to have to become intently aware of every time you had those impostery thoughts. Not sure if impostery is a word, but I'm going with it. If you notice that you're struggling with this set of feelings that we just talked about, take a moment to step back and examine what you're thinking. What are your thoughts? What are you saying to yourself that is causing you to have this set of feelings? Then take a moment to think back about when you started down this road with these thoughts and these feelings. If you notice that every time somebody says good job, you automatically start freaking out, then that's something that you need to dive into and figure out why you're having those feelings and what you can do about them. Once you become aware of the thoughts that are causing the feelings that are imposter syndrome, then it's time to start working on them. Normally, I would say in a thought habit that you're going to have to rewrite the way that you talk to yourself, but imposter syndrome might not happen often enough that it has become a thought habit. It's more situational and reactionary than it is habitual. Since this is a little bit of a moving target, give yourself some grace as you're trying to work through it. It may not be as hard and fast as a normal thought habit would be. Imposter syndrome tends to crop up around changes. So a new job, a new school, a big promotion. And the bigger the change is and the further it is outside of your comfort zone, the more likely you are to have those imposter thoughts. Take a moment to remember that it is totally normal to be feeling these imposter thoughts because you had a big change that is maybe outside of your comfort zone. And the other thing to remember is, if we're being honest, not everything we think is true. Trust the judgment of the people that put you in the place that you earned, and just keep moving forward. The longer you are in your new environment or adapting to your new change, the more likely that these thoughts are going to subside, provided that you do not give them any of the power they don't deserve. Don't indulge them, don't internalize them, don't mull them over and let them run crazy around your brain. Acknowledge them for what they are, a likely reaction to a change, and then switch your thoughts to something else. Another way that can help is by talking it out with someone that's been in a similar situation as you. Maybe you're the first person in your family to go to college, or maybe you're the first woman at your company in the C-suite. Either one of these is likely to cause some serious imposter syndrome. But just because you don't have people that are physically close to you or emotionally close to you that have been through something similar doesn't mean there isn't someone out there that hasn't also gone through an experience like this. We conveniently have this whole World Wide Web thing full of social media outlets where you could go seek out some peers or a mentor. Talking out your situation and your feelings will help you see that other people who went through similar situations had similar feelings that you're having now. Not only that, they probably had similar comments from their coworkers or their friends or their family members, and they probably also had a lot of similar experiences. Realizing that you aren't alone and that the people that you admire and look up to have gone through similar experiences will not only help you deal with your feelings, but will also help you not feel so isolated. The next tip is to be kind to yourself. I feel like it's kind of been woven through all of these things that I've talked about so far, but I kind of feel like I gotta say it outright. Even if you made a mistake or some project that you're working on doesn't live up to what you had hoped it would be, does not serve as proof that you don't belong where you are. Leaders in the highest possible positions still make mistakes, still bomb stuff completely sometimes. You and I and everyone else in the world are not perfect, never have been, never will be, so let's just let that go right now. If you fail, learn from it and move forward. But on the flip side, if you succeed, don't say that it was a fluke. Go celebrate it. You deserve it. The next method is to be okay with reaching out for help. If we go back to those highest leaders, they are not doing that all by themselves. In fact, the further up you go, the bigger the staff they have around them. No one does it all alone, no matter what they say. So don't be afraid to reach out for some help and some guidance. This is especially true if your imposter syndrome cropped up around a new position, a new job, a new school. You're new. Of course, there are going to be some things that you don't know, but don't let those feelings be the reason that you're afraid to reach out, get some help and some guidance to get you where you need to go. All right, question of the day. I'd like to know if you ever had imposter syndrome, what did you do to get it worked out? Let me know down in the comments so that we can have a conversation and help each other out. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button. It really helps me get this video in front of more people that need it. And if you want more videos about productivity, motivation, and stress relief, hit the subscribe button too. Don't forget to check out the description box because I'm gonna have a bunch of resources down there for you, plus a link so that you can get on my calendar and have a free call with me to see if coaching with me is right for you. Thanks everybody, and I'll see you in the next video. Fear of failure, chronic self-doubt, being afraid of get here on merit where have and that you didn't around figuring out what's going on. That didn't make much sense. Imposter syndrome, change, the more comfortable you're going so that you can get what you need might be on the imposter syndrome